we've teased it a bit. Like you have some massive clients from the world of sport and celebrity and stuff like that. Like, how did that begin, Mel? You going from being the Richmond S&C and now you're coaching some of the biggest stars in the world. Like, how was it all word of mouth or your network or just being in the right place at the right time? Or
I think a bit of a perfect storm of them all, really, to be
mm.
fair. But I started training Gabby Logan because I played against Kenny a few times, and up at Sale, Brian Redpath and Kenny Logan are besties. You know what I mean? Anytime you come and visit, we'd have a bit of crack. And when you play against Kenny, you know, he was a great lad. He played hard, and you know, with the rugby, you play against him twice a year, maybe sometimes three times, and so you kept coming across each other. And then Kenny said, "My missus is looking for a PT," and she was in Kew at the time. We started training. Then people know I train her, Catherine Jenkins, and then people know I train Catherine Jenkins, and then it goes bing, bong, 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 and then it just, you know, I train a few other people, and I get to train. Actually, before I got to train Nick Frost, you like this one, because it was me thinking on my feet. I love Nick Frost. He's so good. I'm thinking, who am I going to train who's a big unit? And they're going to lose some tin, and they're going to say, who's training him? That's what I thought. That was so simple, so simple. And I said, I messaged Nick Frost, and I said, because he was on Twitter a lot at that time.
Yeah.
I don't think Insta was that big. I said, free PT sessions for you. Your currency of payment shall be giggles and sweat? Question mark.
Brilliant.
that was my opening gambit for Nick Frost, and he messaged me back, messaged me on the DMs. Dad was quite good at that. Dad was good, but I would witness Dad getting out of the car and plowing into people, and I knew that. See, but the bad thing about that is you get used to that chaos, and you get used to that adrenaline. I would be hyper aware, as my sister would be, that the atmosphere could change very quickly, and you'd be very analytical on movements, which makes me quite good at looking at people now and how they lift and how. But someone give Dad the fingers or whatever back in the day, brakes on, pull in. If they were anyway cheeky and didn't back down immediately, boom, in the door. Yeah. Open the door, bang, and then I'd be like, there's one time where he got out and pulled across, and the fella put the window down a little bit. He said, if your son wasn't with you, I'd give you a damn good hiding. Meanwhile, I'm opening the sunroof to sit on the sunroof, and I stood on the chairs, sat on the sunroof, and said, hit him, Daddy, hit him.
Thank you for hitting play on this episode of Mono y Mono. This is a very special episode, as it is the last episode being released in 2023, a Christmas special, talking to a special guy. I was speaking to Mel Dean, who is a former professional rugby player turned personal trainer to some of the most successful people in sports and entertainment. Some of the names he trains with, the likes of Rio Ferdinand, Tom Hardy, Chris Hemsworth, you name it. Some amazing people in their chosen fields, and Mel is an amazing personality. It's really interesting. We dive into his childhood, what has moulded the man, has helped create the positive an entertaining mindset he has from growing up in rural Ireland, in Longford, moving to London and going to school and beginning his path becoming a professional rugby player, playing with some of the best teams and best players in the history of the sport, to go on to do what he does now and to be a trainer to the stars. So definitely worth listening to this one, and I really hope that you enjoy it. And we're off. Mel Dean.
How are you, buddy? Okay, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Are you okay?
Very good. Thank you for jumping on this episode of Mono y Mono, my personal podcast. I was saying, who can I speak to put me in a great mood ahead of Christmas?
Well, I wouldn't say I was a mental Christmas person. I'm just upbeat generally, not necessarily a Christmas fiend. Yeah.
No, you're the opposite of the Christmas Grinch, though, I'm sure. you
Yeah,
know?
no. Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
definitely.
Absolutely. Although there's quite a few of those good memes, isn't there? Yeah, there's quite a few of them.
There certainly is. So, as I said, thanks for jumping on. We're just going to have a get together and a catch up. For people who don't know, on this podcast, I like to speak to people. Firstly, people I enjoy having conversation with. I love having a chat with you, but also people with interesting stories and journeys in business, in life. And you tick a lot of those boxes. You've had a incredible career to date and still growing. Originally a professional rugby player, and then you evolved into the space of personal training and coaching, and love to dive into that a little bit. But before we get into that interesting stuff, do you want to give us a little bit of background from the horse's mouth, as it were? You're a man living in London, but originally from just outside Longford town.
Yes. Well, to be honest, I was born in London,
Oh,
but
really?
I was born in London, yeah, but dad was managing the Crown in Cricklewood, which was synonymous with the Irish in London at the time, where all the lads would be picked up to go to work would be on the forecourt of the Crown, and then they come back after, needless to say, working day in day out, hand the checks over to dad, and manage to spend all the cash then in the Crown. That's why it was so popular. But yeah, I came back to Ireland just when I was 1 and grew up in Longford Town until I was 13 when mum and dad were separating and mum wanted to go back to London. And yeah, so I spent my formative years in Longford Town, hence Mel, St. Mel. Everybody, that's the gag, isn't it? Because the St. Mel's Cathedral, the St. Mel's College. And if you'd say your name, Mel, you always say the surname. It's Mel type, Mel, Diffley, Donlan, whatever. And the joke is every Tom, Dick, and Harry from Longford is called Mel.
and and this is the thing. This is why I love learning new things in general, but especially people you know. Like, I never knew that about Longford. You know, being from
Yeah.
Ireland, and I like to think my general knowledge is reasonably good, and I love history and all that side of stuff. But I never knew that about Longford, and I never knew that about Mel. And I think you're the only person I know called Mel, you know, in my social circle, you know?
When I say hello, how are you to people over here, and we started talking, what's your name? And I'll say Mel. And I think that's quite easy to understand, maybe. And they go, Ma. And I go,
Yeah.
Mel. And then it's like, and I always say, like Mel Gibson, but without the money. You
Yeah.
get me? And they go, oh, and then they kind of get the gist of it. But Mel Gibson's mother is from Longford. So that's why he is just Mel.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, 2 stars.
There you go.
Embarrassing.
Yeah. So will we see a Mel and Mel collaboration in the future? He seems to be a guy who likes to keep fit. So, you know.
Coming together.
Yes, for Office fans and Ricky Gervais fans, we're doing the interlocking of the fingers and biting the bottom lip.
Terrible. Apologies.
Oh no need. I love that. So that's mad. And actually, another connection to Mel Gibson, a personal connection. So when I was growing up, I was very lucky to have a lady who used to look after myself and my siblings when my parents were at work, you know. She was a next door neighbor, basically my second mother at this stage, you know. Bertha Estridge is her name. Wonderful woman. And her brother, he actually just died, I think 2 or 3 years ago, God rest him, emigrated to Australia. Yes. And married Mel Gibson's sister.
Oh, be Jesus.
Yeah, so really? There was that small connection. Bertha never met him now, but at the time they were shooting Braveheart and Trim back in the
were they really? 90s. Yeah.
And my dad was kind of like, you need to go over and meet him, you know, because, you know, the connection. And she was too shy to go over. Unfortunately, she didn't get to meet him, but that's that connection, you know, typical Ireland, you know, 3 degrees of separation becomes 1 degree of separation. Oh, someone who's married to his sister.
Love it.
Yeah, so I love all that stuff, you know, the networking, and we can touch on that in a bit as well, Mel, in terms of your business side of things, how important network is and how it evolves over time. But before we dive into your entrepreneurship, let's look at your formative years. So you were in Longford, and you know, when you were in school, were you good in school, or you know, were you
No,
more focused? No, you weren't. Not at all.
no. No, my sister is a super duper clever lady. Like she got the brains, all of them, and she's a doctor of conflict. So
Wow.
yeah, her specialization is the Middle East. So she's great lady to talk to. But yeah, I was more. It's funny because my sister went for the kind of cerebral conflict, to think about conflict, and I was more of the physical.
The
You know,
physical.
because yes, because I rugby and boxed and judo and karate and whatever. So I would be more of a physical side of things than necessarily mental.
So you got the body.
No, Shelley's very powerful. Well, I used to,
You got the
do you know
best of
what
both
that?
worlds.
Yeah, Shelley, Dad gloved us up one day. So gave Shelley, because Shelley was, she could actually punch with either hand, but gave Shelley the one on her best hand. And I'm a year and 5 months younger than Shelley. Like stood us up in front of each other. Away you go. Fucking plowing into each other. Shelley and myself. Shelley knocked me down. And I went down, and Dad said he could see a rage, a start in me. He said I got up to like murder Shelley, and I was like, right, that'll do. And I was like,
That was
but
the beginning of it.
yeah, that was absolutely. But yeah, Shell, she's a legend, an absolute legend, my sister.
Brilliant. Brilliant. That's great to hear that you've such a good relationship with your sibling. So school wasn't a thing for you. So I'm sure sport was, obviously, of how
Yeah,
you ended up and you focused into that. So where did the
yeah.
sport begin? Did it start rugby first, Gaelic first, hurling? What was the crack?
Yeah, well, boxing, because Dad loved the boxing, and needless to say, we used to watch fights together. But I started playing rugby in Longford at under eights. But my best pal at the time said, "Come down and play rugby." So I ended up starting in Longford, and I liked being aggressive and running into people, and you could hand off then when you were that age. And I
Yeah.
was boxing already before, and so I was hammering people in the face with handoffs. And obviously, a child doesn't want to tackle anybody that gets a straight arm in the face. And I was like scoring tries willy nilly. I was like,
Yeah.
this is for me. And so I got a bit of, I wouldn't say notoriety, but people knew that I was okay at playing. And I got into Roscrea as for 1 year, and I think it was off the back that I could play, but my Irish was like appalling, and I went to an Irish teacher, and she literally wrote down an Irish essay. I learned it verbatim, fathers, all exclamation marks, full stops, the lot. And when I got to the paper in Roscrea, I was looking, thinking, I don't know what any of these mean, the other titles,
Yeah.
but one of them was something about a day and to remember. But the essay I remembered, what I had to remember, was Timperstone Boher, the road accident. Bang! I
Yeah.
just mowed that down, fired through it. Otherwise, I'd have been a joke. You know, all my different
And that was the entrance
exam.
exam, was it? That was the entrance exam.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
okay.
was the end for us, great, yeah. But they made you study like 4 hours a night or whatever. So so I got a bit of studying done there. Kind of a bit. You know what? I went because it was there was fellas going to the choir, and I had this kind of deep voice when I was a young fella altogether, and there's the auditions for the choir, and it was going to be an hour of study, so it was like, yes, please.
Yeah.
So to be brought down, and I remember I was brought down with a fella by the name of Sean Brosnan, and we went in there, we stood there, around, hanging around for, obviously we weren't studying, so I didn't, that was great. And I was standing there beside Sean, and she said, Sean, what's your name? Oh, my name is Sean. And she said, okay. And she went bang on the piano and said, I want you to hum this note. Boom. And he went, whatever the note was. And she was, so that's very good. That's very good. And then she said, what's your name? And I said, Mel Dean. And she went, I'm sorry, you won't be good enough. I, did, I didn't
Really?
even get the hum because I was like, in comparison to everybody else. Yeah. Anyway,
So back to study with you.
Get back up there. You're not going to miss out on any study for the choir. Damn.
She must have had some ear, I'd say, if she was able to tell that just from your name.
I know, but it was. I've had this kind of.
Yeah.
For quite a while. Yeah.
So you're in Roscrea.
I've done a bit of voiceover stuff. I don't like to talk about that either,
No doubt.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we're going to touch on that later on, definitely. But Roscrea, so you were there for the full 5-6 years?
No.
Oh, no.
I was only there for 1 year. There for 1 year, and it was 30 years plus since they left, only a reunion last year. And I was only in the first year, but I went back there and still remember some of the boys that were there. Wow. Really good lads. Really good fellas, to be fair. I was only there for 1 year before I came to England. When I came to England, I came to school in England, into a Catholic school. I didn't get to say goodbye to my pals in Longford or Roscrea or Enton. Mum says, you're not going back to Ireland. You're starting school in here next week, because Dad was in America and I got back from America, and I was straight into school in England. And then more fighting, Irish this and Irish that. So I was I was plowing into people in London.
And you knew how to box, so that was helpful.
Yeah, that was really helpful. But that if you get the name of an early riser, you can lie in bed all day. So if you chin a couple of people, they look at you and they go, hey, don't go near him.
Yeah.
I actually liked that that notoriety, or that edge, that I was a little bit different. So yeah, don't mess me about.
Yeah, that's a valuable lesson as well. Is that not everyone obviously can handle that, or do that kind of thing. And on the boxing, are you still a fan of boxing now?
Love boxing. Yeah, I used to, because when Dad was in New York, he was in Astoria in Queens, and we used to, when I go over in the Christmas, Easter, summer to see Dad with Shelley, generally my sister, we go to the Madison Square Garden and fight night at the Felt Forum, and you'd be in there, and guaranteed, obviously in a boxing arena, everybody thinks they can handle themselves, and someone will be upset, and all of a sudden there's fighting the crowd, and you're watching the crowd and you're watching them fight, and it's madness. It was madness. Dad brought me to those things, but it was great. It was a great education, from coming from the arsehole of nowhere in Longford, and then been at Madison Square Garden, and fellas tearing into each other in the crowd, and the fight going on in the ring, and I saw some good fights. Loved it. Always enjoyed it.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, the atmosphere. I haven't been to any big boxing matches. I'm very lucky to go to one of the McGregor fights in Las Vegas. But talk about the bright lights, the entertainment of it, the atmosphere, the energy in the room. Something about combat sports is very, very unique. And I definitely want to go to a big boxing one in the future. Maybe the Tyson Fury Ngannou 2 in the future. What do you think? Did you see that fight?
I didn't see it. Too much dinero. But when you're at the end of the evening, you're going to have to try and get it. I'm trying to get it on the computer. Yeah. I was like, how much? I'm going to miss. I've missed all the undercards. So I said, I'll listen to it. So I ended up listening to it. But
even the highlights of it, did you see any of that?
I did. I only saw the knockdown, and I was when I saw the knockdown, it was just that clip of it. That literally 10 minutes after it happened, I was like,
yeah,
that and God. But he was training with Tyson.
Yeah,
and Tyson is, if he could get that across. But Tyson said a good thing to Ngannou. That God must love you because he gave you that kind of power, and he gave you that. But the bad thing about that is that the devil loves you too, to give you that kind of that kind of power. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I was thinking, oof. And Tyson he's so on the edge all the time, isn't he? When he's on those podcasts, he can talk about Cus D'Amato or someone that he loved, or bang, and his throat is out, isn't he? He finds it difficult to talk, and he puts himself down, and it's hard to actually listen to Tyson sometimes. But I love it. He was a savage. He was an absolute savage, a lunatic. savage. But when you're sleeping in the best of houses and you're dare I say the eye of the tiger falls out on the floor, doesn't it? The young fella, the hungry fella is going to come up and he's going to take it from under you. No matter how good you are, Ali, or Tyson or whoever you were, there's someone coming up that's going to beat you. However, they're going to beat you, but because you get too comfortable, and age doesn't wait for anybody, does it? So,
and that's it. All these sayings, age waits for no man, and genius next to madness, and then I suppose with Tyson, there's a beast in all of us. And I'm throwing out these phrases, but they're so relevant, especially to the likes of someone like him. It is that case of things. It is that genius next to madness, and being calm and then being able to become that absolute animal
yeah, he was.
Because you need that, especially in that combat sport, but you need that in life in general, have the ability. But that's it, I suppose, the difference, isn't it? Having that animal inside you, but being able to control it and focus it. And that's where having the right role model and direction and guidance is so important for people. And Tyson had that. What was the name of his coach?
Cus D'Amato, yeah.
Yeah, he had that. And for you, Mel, that's a good question to ask. Did you have someone like that in your life to help you focus that aggression you had inside you?
Dad was quite good at that. Dad was good, but I would witness Dad getting out of the car and plowing into people, and I knew that. But the bad thing about that is you get used to that chaos, and you get used to that adrenaline. I would be hyper aware, as my sister would be. The atmosphere could change very quickly, and you'd be very analytical on movements, which makes me quite good at looking at people now and how they lift and how. But someone give Dad the fingers or whatever back in the day, brakes on, pull in. If they were anyway cheeky and didn't back down immediately, boom, in the door. Yeah. Open the door, bang, and then I'd be like, there's one time where he got out and pulled across, and the fella put the window down a little bit. He said, if your son wasn't with you, I'd give you a damn good hiding. Meanwhile, I'm opening the sunroof to sit on the sunroof, and I stood on the chairs, sat on the sunroof, and said, "Hit him, Daddy, hit him."
Jesus.
that's how used to it I was. So, and Dad never drank, and I never drank either, and so. But I saw red a few times, and it's better be, under control than not. You know what I mean? But everybody has a go at you. Go and have a drink. Go and have a drink. But I've never done that. But everyone thinks I'm a bit weird for not doing that. But if you never had it, you never miss it.
Yeah. But the thing, I suppose, again, trying to look at it from a very positive perspective, and I'm sure we both have a certain perspective on it because, rugby is a very competitive, masculine, aggressive sport that you have to have, and you have to have that inside you to succeed in it.
Yes.
To be able to refine or, rough diamonds to create into a well-cut diamond to become a professional. Was it rugby that gave you that discipline? Was it boxing that gave you that discipline?
Yeah, a bit of everything, really. A bit of everything. I love the judo, learning how to fall.
You did judo as well. Jesus, Mel. Another thing.
That helped me in actually when I wasn't doing my studying, the teacher wrote a letter to give to my mom or whatever, and I put it in my pocket. I give it to your mom. Did you give it to your mom? Yeah. No, didn't give it to mom, but she found it when she was going to wash my jeans. And then I was farting around in the back of the class one day. I was only in second class or whatever it was. I was a little shite. And then someone said, "Mel, is that your mom?" I was like, "What?" And I looked around and I looked at the window of the door, and then mom went bang and put the pink ticket that I knew it was that I hadn't handed to her against the door. I was like, shite. Yeah. I'm in trouble here. And Mrs. Hackett came to the door and I went, "Mel, come over here." And I went over there. I was like, "I am in trouble," and then Mrs. Hackett, don't be too hard on him. And mom went, "Get in here," whatever. And I was going to these karate and judo stuff at the time. And then mom got home. said, get out. She was like shouting at me and drove home, got into the house. She went and got a slipper and said, come over here. And I was just standing in front of her, and she went like to lash me with the slipper. And I blocked the hand, bang, karate, bam, boom. And I blocked it. And she went, incensed. Again. I went bang and blocked her. And she went, you can see her. So I said, what are you sending me to self-defense for? That was the end of that. She never hit me again after that. But yeah, I know how to fall pretty well. So I've it's got me out of a few scrapes. It's got me out of a few scrapes being able to fall.
Jesus, you're a pioneer for the mixed martial arts then, in terms of a Bruce Lee-esque before the explosion of UFC and Pride and all that kind of stuff. So that definitely, you know, looking back now, we can say that definitely helped, I'm sure, in the sport. So,
yeah.
So
absolutely.
Did you compete in that as well, or was it just training?
No.
Never.
No, just training. I actually did some with Tom Hardy when his house down the country. I went out because I used to train Charlotte a lot, his missus, and he's really passionate about his jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He's so keen on it, and we were freaking rolling around on the mats, and it was so funny because how I feel comfortable is when I'm on my feet. And I can generate, because I can generate force on my feet, you know. Yeah. But obviously they're grappling on the deck, and it's a horrible kind of a. I know you did that in rugby to get the ball back or whatever, which was fine. But when they're trying to wrap their hand around your neck to like stop you breathing, I said, but I want to get up all the time. I feel like I want to get to my feet, and he said, okay. That's fair enough. So I will choke you out when you're on your feet. I was like, okay.
Was this gi or non-gi?
Yeah, no, non-gi.
Non-gi as well. Wow.
Yeah, but he's light in comparison. So I wouldn't find him too hard to push away from me. He kept coming on top of you. But, you know, literally before I caught a fellow who robbed my bike, the Sunday before, I was doing BJJ with Tom, and he was talking about sticking your shoulder in your man's neck, you know, and to stop them, makes him concentrate about how am I going to breathe, let alone put some moves on you. And I was doing exactly that. It was maybe 3 days later of a fellow who stole my bike, and I tackled him full bore off the bike, used his head as a brake on the concrete, and then and then held on to him until the police landed. But anyway. That's another story.
That's another tangent. Yeah. That's a good thing we're on a podcast, because we have the time to talk about it. There's so much to unpack there. You're showing in like Hollywood superstar Tom Hardy choking you out, then tackling a guy in London, stealing your bike. You know, I mean, we haven't even got to how did you start playing rugby, you know? So we'll come back to that situation with the jiu-jitsu and Tom Hardy and all that, carry on. But the rugby side of stuff, in school, how did you get from going to school in London to becoming a professional rugby player? Was that something you always wanted to do, or did it just happen?
Yes, I did. I wanted to be the best I could be at rugby. I wanted to go as far as I could. And I remember one pal that was basically a second home. You know, when you get somewhere, and my dad was in America, and mum was kind of reliving her youth, so she wasn't in the house all the time. I was like, and Shelley was studying so much, and we had to travel a good bit to school. So I was like, I was on my own a good bit. But my best pal, Andrew Hurley, for the time that I only saw Hurley the other day for the first time though in ages, but I only saw him on Sunday. But Andrew Hurley, obviously his surname, he's a Paddy background. He's the younger son. He has an older sister. That was my situation. Irish parents, my situation. So I went there on a Friday, and I stayed on the Friday, and I probably left 2.5 years later. I was with they were my family, but not my family, if you know what I mean. So and Hurley was a bit of a late developer. So I ended up looking after Hurley on the field. He was the number 10, I was the 12.
Right.
And so I looked after him on the field, and but we were the best of pals and still are, really. So it's great. That's what I love about rugby. If you put your body on the line for other people in that game, you get immediate respect. You bang immediately. You just think about people you played with, Shane. You go, geez, he'd smash people. When you think about someone like that, you love playing with them because they didn't not necessarily care about themselves, but they put themselves on the line.
Yeah.
Like Andre Voss, a captain of mine when I was at Quins, I would say that. Well, I say that about a lot of players, but he would be he would stick his head in, obviously a real 7, sticking his head in places where the people would be absolutely chinning him, butting him, anything, but he's trying to get the ball for us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is why I loved rugby. I loved it because I got immediate respect for being someone that will flatten someone or run hard. He'll get the ball back. He'll do the best he can. He'll leave everything on the park, and I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was funny you mentioned that because I was actually a guest on a podcast yesterday, Melly. First time I was, in a long time I was asked to be a guest. But I brought that up in terms because I was asked me about the rugby career, and I said, one of the most important things for me personally when I was playing, when I was in a team, whether it was for the coaches or my teammates, was to earn their respect. That was the most important thing for me, that every player in the team could turn, we can rely on Mono. He can deliver whatever happens. And that if we're going to war, I'll fucking put my head where you wouldn't put a shovel for you and the team. And in life, he said, to earn respect is not an easy thing, and a lot of the time action is the best way to do it. And that is a great thing and an advantage of the rugby side of it. And that's why it's very frustrating when you were on a team and you weren't playing, you couldn't earn your respect. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was a huge thing. It's funny that you mentioned that because it's very, very true. So when you were in school, so how did that work? Was it the Colt system? Did you have a county player and underage?
Yes, at the time here in London, which is funny, but you're talking about playing with Hurley, my bestie, for Ruislip. I went to Ruislip as an under 14 when I came to England at first, and played for a couple of years until they'd only had under 16, that group, and then it went to Colts, which was under 19. So there's a jump, so you have to feed into that. But one of the lads had an older brother, Peter Skinner's brother, Michael Skinner, was in Wasps, in the Colts and Wasps. And Skin said, I'm going to go there. I'm going to go and see, can I was like, all right, bang, let's go. I'm going to Wasps. So I went to Wasps as a 16-year-old, and I played the first Saturday. And then, but the coach kind of got on my nerves a bit now and again because the England boys would come back, like Nick Greenstock, he's a year older than me, but he'd come back. He's a Wasp, but he was playing up the country or whatever. And he'd come back as soon as he's in the mix, bang. Obviously, I'm thrown into the subs bench or whatever, like that. I'd be like, just growling to get back on. But I spent 5 years at Wasps. So I played with some great players, great lads, young fellas coming up, and I played with a lot of internationals. And you just rise to whatever you're around. Really, you rise to whatever you are. If you put yourself under a bit of pressure, and I didn't mind doing that, and I love getting stuck in, but we go back to the, okay, if I can prove myself amongst these boys, I'm going to be all right. So that was my challenge then. And but needless to say, I wasn't particularly still. But I went to university to play more rugby, uni rugby, Brunel, university championships, all that kind of stuff. We won the Brunel won the Booster Championship. There's some good boys in Brunel, and so I was around some great players.
What era was this? What years?
Well, I signed my last year at uni was 96, the June 96, and I immediately signed for Richmond as a professional, straight into professionalism.
Right.
But I was working in the behind the bar at Dad's, and I was working on the buildings in the summers and any holidays or whatever. So I was a grafter, and I knew as soon as I went professional rugby. So I'm training now and I'm getting paid for it.
Yeah.
Hello, enjoy this. This is gonna be savage. And that's when Peace came to Richmond as well. When I signed as a professional, that was Peace's first time as a professional. So I got to know Peace very well. Agustin Pichot, if you didn't know who I was chatting about there, the Argentine legend, Grease Monkey, I call him. But anyway, that's fine.
No, that's fine. I'm sure he loves you calling him Grease Monkey. So Richmond, were they was the Premiership set up at that stage?
Yes.
Yeah, so
yes,
Richmond were in the Prem, were they? At that stage?
The first year as a professional, they were in the Prem. No, they were the first year. Yes, they were. My first year as a professional, but they had only just come into it. Yeah. All the promotion and all that.
And
that's when the big money. They had Ben Clark and Scott Quinnell and Craigie Quinnell, and the Welsh internationals were like littered through it. So, but it was a great time to be in rugby. It was a great time.
Yeah,
loved it.
It was still that transition period from the amateur era into the professional. That crossover of players. And Richmond, how long were you there for, and where did you go next?
I went to Connacht for a year then after Richmond, because Ireland said they wouldn't play me or consider me unless I came back to Ireland. So I went back to Connacht. Glenn Ross wanted me to come back and play in Connacht. So I only went back for a year, and then went back to Sale and played at Sale when Jason Robinson came over from Rugby League.
Yeah,
and Apollo Perry. And that was a great time to be at Sale.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Loved it, because everyone was absolutely bricking it, playing against Jason. So they didn't want to drift. Jason, he's going to get the ball. And so then, little short ball to me, it made me look good. Charlie Hodgson, he always hit the right man. Charlie Hodgson, what a superb talent. Loved playing with Charlie. Actually, Jason, it's 20 years since the World Cup team, and Jason Robinson had a couple of things up. He had his some little highlights or whatever on his stories, and I messaged him. I said, Jace, I know I love these. Yes, it was an absolute pleasure to make the tackles that you missed up at Sale all those. Yeah, Melly, whatever. Yeah, he was a consummate professional, Jace. Really, really was. Superb. But I remember, I'm not sure who the person was. I should probably remember their name. When we were at Hayward Road, there was this much between the touchline, the fence, the stand. It was really, really tight. They're in on top of you. No, more than the shed in Gloucester.
Yeah.
But I remember we were warming up, and Jason used to do spirals, and I was taking these kicks, and then one went a little bit ski whiff, and I kind of looked this way, and as I said, there was a lady holding a pint who was like a super duper fan. Boom on top of the head, and the pint went bang. I like that. Oh Jesus, sorry, you okay? Yeah, fine. She's like when someone is embarrassed, and a bit, they just fob it off. And then I was looking back up at Jason. Actually, was it Jason? It was Charlie Hodgson. It was one of them anyway. I was looking back up, and then we were passing and kicking. 2 weeks later, and I thought, I wonder what happened there. I wonder if she's okay. And then I caught, and then I kind of looked over here. She has a massive compo collar on right now. Oh no! Yeah, it got me. Yeah, got me in
that. Sorry about that.
It's just one of those.
Here's some free
you get to know the people are there all the time.
Yeah.
The fans that are there all the time. But yeah, that was a funny one.
That's that is one great thing about being a player in a club like that. Any club, whether it's local level, but definitely in the professional side, is the fans. Getting to know them and building that relationship. And then it's a case of, people hear the old stereotype of players who did it for the fans and did it, the support and all that. It sounds a bit generic, but you genuinely mean it, especially when you get to know them, and how much it means to some people. is huge. And it's one thing I always bring it up when I talk about it in Gloucester in particular. Like, I was so lucky to play for that club in terms of the fan base is so hardcore and it means everything to them. And, there was my last season there, one of the stewards sadly passed away, and there was an open invite to go to the funeral for the players and stuff. And I went to the funeral to pay my respects. And he had a Gloucester jersey on the coffin, and his family were wearing Gloucester jerseys at his funeral. That's how much it meant to them. I'll never forget that. And I think of that, and I said, it's in their DNA. And that's why, like, you can understand when people go, they're losing their minds over a few losses. It's literally, it means everything to them,
Yeah, that's fabulous. It makes me think of Gloucester. One time I was playing for Richmond down in Gloucester, was when Scott Quinnell was with Richmond, and the shed, someone from the shed, there was a line out just before line out. And I remember some fella from the shed shouting like, bah, like bellowing out, because we were losing, where's your money now, Quinnell? And so he stepped out of the line, right? He tapped himself on his arse as if it's in his back pocket, and then stepped back into the line and then jumped up to take the pass. They went mental.
Yeah.
The whole shed went absolutely mental. But that's a good memory. But I used to love going to play there in Gloucester.
Yeah.
And the shed, like, shouting at you. It was like, come, and I love it. That kind of give you the buzz and the hair on the back of your neck. Love it.
Incredible. Yeah, like the first experience I ever had really in front of the shed there was sevens tournament. I don't know what it's called now, different sponsors, but at the time, it was first time ever playing in a sevens tournament. First time actually ever playing a game of sevens, man. I was shit myself. I was super fit at the time, but sevens is just a different level, especially when you're not used to it. And we did first time ever doing that warm up running in front of the shed. And this is pre-season, but it was packed. Like, it was a beautiful summer evening for sevens. And Hughie Edmonds had just signed as well. He was a hooker for Australia for a period of time and that. And we did the run, and like the Gloucester. And as you're saying, the hair started just standing on my arms and my stomach and the butterflies. And I was, what the fuck? And like, what do you mean? Like, it's like, what the hell? And myself and Hughie were in the dressing room. We just looked at each other, and he's like, mate, did you feel that as well? And I said, yeah, that was fucking insane, And that was the beginning of it. And I was like, this is incredible. And then, as I said, it was a great first time on the pitch for me. And couldn't have been a better season or start. First touch of the ball, basically, we were in our own 10 or whatever. Henry Trinder hits the ball, and I just said, fuck this. I got past the winger just about and scored a try. And that's the first touch in sevens, first touch in a Gloucester jersey, and first time playing in Kingsholm. So it was couldn't have been a better start for me.
I don't like to talk about it.
Whatever. But it is that kind of thing. And I suppose it's the respect. We talk about the respect thing, and the point I'm trying to make is earning the respect of the fans, because it takes a long time to get the respect of the fans in Gloucester, but when you do get it, it's fantastic. But so the Connacht, we skipped over. I'm sure that must have been a bit of a culture shock coming from London.
London back to Connacht. Yes. Yeah, I wasn't happy that year, and I came back to Sale. So, but Eric Elwood was there. I loved the lads. There was some great lads, but it wasn't as professional as I would have liked.
Yeah.
So I came back to the Premiership, and then I played for Sale, and then I played for Quins. And then when I finished playing for Quins, Eric Elwood was at Connacht and said, would you be interested in coming back for a couple of years? So I finished my last 2 years at Connacht in Sports Ground.
And I just missed you. When did you finish, 09?
09, correct, yeah.
I was there in 10.
No.
So, yeah,
just
missed you. Yeah, so I was there for a season on development contract. Yeah, and it was very frustrating for a year for me there. But if it wasn't for that frustrating year, I wouldn't have ended up in in the UK, and that's life, isn't it? Doors closed and other ones open
Yeah,
all the time.
yeah.
So, if you were to choose, I know it's a very difficult thing. Like, what would be your club if you were to choose?
Oh, especially every club had its own merit, because Richmond, I was the first professional. I was like, professional what? This was
Yeah,
fabulous.
yeah.
Training. Oh, it was brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And then Connacht was great for me. Well, first time I was away from London and playing. Yeah, it was great. Still great. A great experience. Sale was terrific. I was becoming better and stronger and faster, and I was developing as a player. And then Quins, at all different times, because I had the girls, I had my daughters when I was at Quins, and so it was a family then at Quins, and finishing at Connacht. The girls were getting bigger. Jeez, I really find that hard
I know.
to
I'm
pick.
putting on you on the spot. They're all
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
It's
but I
like,
loved
what's your
Wasp.
favorite child? They're all great. They're all my favorite.
But if you're at Wasps, obviously Wasps thought Quins were absolute arseholes.
Yeah,
When you're a Wasp, always the Wasp, always the Wasp. Oh, but I love my time at Wasps, but I love my time at Quins. There was a gang of paddies at Quins when I was there, more Irish playing for Quins than there was at London Irish, which when they were all South Africans at the time at London
yeah,
Irish. Honestly, it was every club I've been at has been fabulous. I loved being a professional. I loved it. I
yeah.
loved staring into people week in, week out. And in that 13 years as a professional, the longest I was out was 6 weeks, which
Wow,
is which is fabulous. And that was for a head injury.
that's unheard of. Well,
I
that is
know
very,
that.
very wow.
Yeah. So yeah, but I don't know if that not drinking or just thinking I was freaking. Obviously, you're not bulletproof, but I say to the young lads that I train now, I said, we are making ourselves bulletproof. This is what we're doing here. We are making ourselves bulletproof. But just saying about young lads, getting young lads to buy into training, lifting weights. Some people are very natural and they don't want to lift timber. But if you even if they're very talented or just have a good work ethic, if you say a fair game is between two opponents of equal ability. So if I make you 20% stronger, fitter, faster, it's not going to be a fair game. And what side do you want to be on? And you see them kind of go, okay, I'm listening.
Yeah.
You
It's all a
know what I mean?
competition, boys.
So,
Yeah.
but it's all because everybody does their training now, and it's all about the little extras. And I like training young lads, because I think that even though when you're passing in a team coaching session, you don't get so many ball contacts in, or the intricacies of like grappling and ripping balls and stepping so you're not being hit hard, and those little idiosyncrasies of what makes a collision. You have to learn over time of playing. Time.
Mm.
And I don't think the young lads get enough playing time to be able to do that effectively. And I think that's maybe why there are so many more, even though the lads are bigger and more powerful, that's why there's a lot of injuries, and fellas don't last now, because dare I say it, we were playing 3 games a week, not lifting as much. When I was young, when I was at uni, there was club, county, divisional, whatever it would be, uni, bang, 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 mowing through them. And that made you durable.
I agree 100%. And that's coming from personal experience as well. Like when I was a young lad, okay, when you're coming up, playing Gaelic, playing rugby, non-stop activity. I was actually a 10,
Yeah.
would you believe, coming up. So you're in center of everything, which was an amazing position to help with all that. It was only kind of when I moved up the ranks into Leinster, I moved out and I got bigger and all that carry on. But it was when I got up to university and started getting into the sub-academy system, the Leinster system, you started doing a lot more weights and you weren't playing as regularly, is when I started to get injuries.
Yes.
And soft tissue injuries, and then obviously you're getting soft tissue injuries. there's reasons, there's an imbalance somewhere. And it took a long time. It was mainly hamstring, actually, hamstring over and over and over and over again. Like grade 1s, grade 2s, and I wasn't getting, at the time they were saying, do some work on your hamstrings are too weak. Strengthen your hamstrings, which is, they were going because they were working too hard. That was the problem.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So it's the lack of knowledge, even in the physios and the care, the duty care at the time, compared to where it is now. But like when I was in the academy system, it says you're playing A, but you're not playing a lot of rugby and you're not playing at the high level, and you had these issues. It wasn't until I went my season in the UK with Rotherham, where you're playing championship rugby, which is brutal, and you're playing every week, week in, week out, lots of training. So 28 caps in that season. So I played more games in that season than I did 4 years in Ireland. And I didn't get one injury.
Yeah, I know. Listen, I played week in, week out, attritional stuff. I wouldn't have been shirking any tackles, let me tell you.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
So that I felt even like young lads like Jordan Turner Hall, basically when I was leaving Quins to go to Ireland, he was keeping me out of Quins. He was keeping me out. A young lad, super powerful, heavier than me. He was 19, and he was 19, and he was absolute beastie.
Yeah.
But broke down.
Yeah.
Hip broke down, shoulder broke down. I think they pushed them on too quickly, and they do that a lot with some of the fellas. But there's so many lads coming through that people fall away, and there's still somebody there to replace them. I think it's a tough one.
The balance.
Because playing week in, week out, you learn a lot. You learn an awful lot, and your body's
it's superior.
It's a great bit of kit. Your body is a great bit of kit if you look after it.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely superior. And like that, the year after with Gloucester's, why I had that breakthrough season, because I was fit. And that's the thing. If you're not fit, you can't be selected. You can't play. But it's like the callus on your hands. You know, like if you're working and you're digging, shoveling, your hands become adapt and your body adapts to it. And match ready, match fitness versus, every player knows the difference between match fitness and preseason fitness, you know. So agreed 100%. And you as a player, then, we touched on it slightly, but what was your mindset as a 12? For people who don't know rugby, 12 is very important. It's kind of like a halfway house between a back row and a back, because you're so involved in tackling and looking after your 10 and ball carrying, and it's a very impactful position. What was your mindset? How did Mel prepare for a game?
Well, because I played since I was 7, I used to think it's just another game. But I'm going to be the best 12 on the park, and anyone that comes down this channel is getting leathered, and nobody wanted to play against me, really. But then I finished, and people say, "Oh, I used to hate running down your channel." I used to love hearing that. I used to love, because I wanted to murder people and hit them hard and steal the ball and just be a general nuisance to play against. Is what I say to the young lads. Just be. They say, "Oh, is he playing?" Shite, I just wanted. That is the thing, and then the forwards love me because I like to go forward. I like to get the ball back, but then people go, he was just like crashing it up. But if nobody's going forward, I'm going to have to go forward. That was simple as that. But obviously, I'd far prefer to be put through a gap running a line and just bang into a 7 or something. I'd far prefer that. But, when they say, "Oh, you just love crashing it up." But to be fair, now, when I play for the heavies, I only played on Friday. And God, it was the ball was going everywhere. But I got 1 or 2 balls, and I just wanted to literally run at people. I wanted to. That's what I missed that collision. Boom! Rock! That. I missed that. I actually missed that. That's the only bit I missed, because I train hard and I like keep fit, but that's the only thing I miss. I know there's still a little beast in the basement that needs to come out and run around a bit. I know I'm 49 in January, so I shouldn't really be thinking.
Keep that mentality. Keep that mentality.
Yeah.
No.
But I played in the centre with Alan Bateman at Richmond, who was like a Welsh legend, great rugby leaguer as well, and fabulous player. Wasn't particularly big like me, but love tackling, love playing. And I think he plays an odd game himself for the Vets currently. So and he's a good bit older than me.
Yeah.
So do I keep it going? I just like it. I enjoy it. I do enjoy it.
And the social crack as well. And
Yeah.
in that, the first time we met in person, obviously I'd heard the legends of Mel Dean, you know, down the grapevine. I was like, who's this guy? You know, and then they mentioned obviously your PTing and he's working on. So this guy sounds interesting. And then the Irish Legends. So 2019, February 2019, just before all the madness of lockdown and all that shit.
Yeah.
I was asked to go play and was in Quins, of course. First game of rugby I played since I retired in 2015. First time I'd even literally picked up a rugby
Put
ball.
on boots. Yeah,
Put
yeah,
on
yeah.
boots. So I was quite nervous ahead of it. And I spent about like 6 weeks doing a mini preseason because I didn't want to, you know, tear a hamstring. You know what I mean? It's like, fuck that. And I was nervous that like, what if I fucking drop the ball or let the guys that use it? But it's a charity game and it's a bit of fun and all that.
Yeah.
But still, that competitive mindset is still there. And then we were going and then we were doing the warm up. And of course, you were taking the warm up, and everyone was in stitches, you know, the personality and the jokes and all the crack, and everyone was roaring. I says, "This guy is fucking a lunatic. Who's this guy?" You know. And then, of course, it was yourself, and that's kind of how we connected in person for the first time. And then obviously we got in touch in regards to Lemur and the podcast because, you know, I said, there's a guy who needs to start a podcast because he has the personality and he has the network and it will be really interesting. But the kind of evolution then, there's loads of stuff we could talk about. That's another podcast in terms of the rugby side of it. But the evolution into what you're doing now, when did you first decide, or was it a case of what am I going to do next?
Well, I was going to be a publican like my dad. I did the course to get the publican license, and but I didn't think it was going to be a great lifestyle for me, having to stay up late with, you know, the girls. I wouldn't get to see the girls. Obviously they'd be around the pub wherever I would be, but I just didn't fancy it. And I love training, and I always train people, even from when I was like 14 and training in the pubs. So I said, I know you love your training. Would you be able to train my daughter? She's going to do the trying to get into the police, into the, what do you call them? Cadets, into police cadets, and she has to pass this time. She has to do 3K in 12 minutes, and or 3K in whatever it was, 18. I can't remember the time, but I had to make a run, press up, lift, you know, those kind of little bits. So I was training people from when I was very young. Mum did Jane Fonda stuff in Longford, teaching in the schools, you know, the old.
Right, yeah. You still do that, don't you? You wear the spandex and everything. Yeah, yeah.
I do. I know. It's embarrassing to say that, but however. And Dad was into his boxing and his cycling and running, and everything would go, you know, just be fit. So that, needs to say, that rubbed off on me, and I said, yeah, I'll do that. And then when I said it to Peter Moore, who was the accountant when I was at Richmond as a professional, it had gone downhill, needless to say, since, and then it was come up through the ranks all the way back up to the championship. And they said, would you like to do the strength and conditioning? I said, I'd love to do the strength and conditioning. Well, you can use the gym as your hub for training clients. I was like, bingo.
Was this before you retired from rugby or after?
This was before I retired.
Before, right.
Yeah.
How many years before you retired?
No, literally just on the last year, because
last year.
I was looking for things to come back to London for, whether it was going to be a bar or whether it was going to be training, fitness, you know, PT and S&C, and I knew lots of people in the rugby world, so it was great that I could use Richmond as a base.
Fantastic. And
yeah, brilliant.
Who was your first client?
Who was my first client? Ever was a man by the name of Simon Ellis, and we're still pals. I haven't messaged him like in maybe 6 months, but we still have a bit of crack now and again, because he trained with his son the first morning. It was maybe a Saturday morning, and he was doing some squats, and I was making him squat repeatedly, and the young lad was suffering a little bit. He was 16 or 17, and I said to him, Oh my God, you're shaking like a shitting dog, right? I maybe it was too soon to say something like that. Maybe it was too soon. And then Simon literally says that to me every year or so. Yeah, he's never got over that.
I just picture that now. That is fucking brilliant. I can see him. Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah. What a brilliant. Yeah.
So, but yes, luckily I have fabulous clients. I mean, they are legends. And one client of mine said only recently to a client that I only had done 10 sessions and he was going to do another 10 or whatever. And Julian said to the client, he said, the thing about Mel is you never leave or you never come back. So you're one of my people, or I am going to drive you insane and you want nothing to do with me.
You're
You know
a
what I mean?
Marmite.
Yes.
Love
Yeah,
you.
yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there's a few things, obviously, for anyone who's listening doesn't realize, you need to go and follow Mel on social media, Instagram. He has got some incredible clients that you definitely would have heard of and keeps them fighting fit. But before we dive into who some of those clients are and what it's like working with them from a business perspective and being an entrepreneur, running your own business for the first time when you left rugby, what was that like for you, and how have you adapted to that? Did you find that difficult at first, or?
Well, luckily I was doing the S&C for Richmond, so I was still in that team atmosphere. So I was luckily some guys drop away from that and then they don't know because we're institutionalized really from being a professional for so long. I spoke to Danny Grucock there at the School Sevens last year, and we were saying some bits that it was like crazy what we did as professionals. I wouldn't go down well at all in today's I don't know how
Cancel
do I
culture, maybe. Yeah.
yes.
Easily offended with no sense of humor.
Oh my God. Yeah, that is 100% the case. But I was very lucky in that regard. And the clients that I had, obviously, I worked and like trained everybody initially, and then they people that want to be my people stay, and the ones that don't, they go. So there's quite a few turnovers, but there's quite a lot of people that like I have the Sunday crew and Thursday morning crew, and there's two there that have been training with me for 13 years. There's two on that Sunday crew.
Yeah.
They know I'm now. One of them, she's had two. Well, she's going to have a second child now. SBT, because he's SBT, he's sweatband Tom. Because there was another Tom in there initially, and he was hairy, so he was hairy Tom. And then SBT, obviously, because he had a sweatband. So that's how we were going to differentiate them.
Yeah.
But now people call him SBT.
Yeah. Yeah. And they've you to thank for that.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad you see that as a positive because honestly, it's so strange. Even like Kitty Winkles that have grown up now because it's 13 years, they still call him SBT. It's bonkers. Anyway, but yes, so I was very lucky to get into it, and I love what I do, and hopefully my enthusiasm is infectious, and yeah, and so that's why I love it.
And I think it's a case, like you said, the Marmite. Some people really like honesty because a lot of time you don't get honesty, and even in professional sport and the rugby side of stuff, like a lot of the time coaches aren't 100% honest with the players. They have different reasons for that, and players like just fucking tell me like it is. Why am I not playing? Or what do I need to do? Because if I don't know, I can't improve and I can't fix. And that's something I'm sure you're like that. I says, listen, you're overweight. You need to lose weight. End of. Or you're weak. You need to lift weight, or whatever the case may be. And you have a bit of crack and fun. Along the way, which is important. So
we're not making freaking world record holders, so you might as well get strong. You know what I mean? You're going to be better for it. So to be fair, I'm 49 in January, and I'm going to start pushing on kind of dad bods in the new year, and I'm getting online for people to do like get sessions out of me and diet plans, and I do a check-in once a week on video of when I'm reviewing their bits and pieces, and then it'll be a call once a month for the platinum service. That one, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, that can come through, aka
For you.
Yeah, so that's what I'm actually setting up at the moment. But it's a bit of a ball ache to get it set up, but it's going to be good and take over, because it's just at the moment it's still at your time. We transfer money for time, so it's going to be a little bit more efficient. And yeah, so that's the plan anyway. And Rio keeps like annoying me by saying, Mel, why have you set up your online yet? No, I'm actually getting it done. Get it done, Mel. Get it done.
Yeah.
Because Rio's a real businessman. He's on fire, Rio.
Yeah.
You know, he has his fingers in a load of pies.
And on that, like, I'm sure the listeners are just gagging at the mouth. We've teased it a bit. Like, you have some massive clients from the world of sport and celebrity and stuff like that. Like, how did that begin, Mel? You going from being the Richmond S&C, and now you're coaching some of the biggest stars in the world. Like, how was it? All word of mouth, or your network, or just being in the right place at the right time? Or
I think a bit of a perfect storm of them all, really, to be fair. But I started training Gabby Logan because I played against Kenny a few times, and up at Sale, Brian Redpath and Kenny Logan are besties. You know what I mean? Anytime you come and visit, we'd have a bit of crack. And when you play against Kenny, you know, he was a great lad. He played hard, and you know, with the rugby, you play against him twice a year, maybe sometimes 3 times, and so you kept coming across each other. And then Kenny said, my missus is looking for a PT, and she was in Kew at the time. We started training. Then people know I train her, Catherine Jenkins, and then people know I train Catherine Jenkins, and then it goes bing, bong, 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 and then it just, you know, I train a few other people, and I get to train. Actually, before I got to train Nick Frost, you like this one, because it was me thinking on my feet. I love Nick Frost. He's so good. I'm thinking, who am I going to train who's a big unit? And they're going to lose some tin, and they're going to say, who's training him? That's what I thought. That was so simple, so simple. And I said, I messaged Nick Frost, and I said, because he was on Twitter a lot at that time. I don't think Insta was that big. I said, free PT sessions for you. Your currency of payment shall be giggles and sweat? Question mark.
Brilliant.
that was my opening gambit for Nick Frost. And he messaged me back, messaged me on the DMs. He was doing a movie at that time, so he couldn't do it at that time. But we kept like a little bit in contact, and I'd see him in Twickenham now and again. And then I went to see, because I trained Chris a few times, Chris Hemsworth, Thor, and he was there a few times, and he was on.
Hold on a second, Chris Hemsworth.
Snow White.
Chris
Snow White.
How did you get crazy? Sorry.
No, he was on the set of Snow White and the Huntsman, and I went to see Chris to see how he was going, and Zocchi, his trainer, because I've done a good few sessions with Zocchi, his trainer, Luke Zocchi. Great lads, really good fellas. And he has that century fit with Chris now, you know, this massive. But I went to see the boys at, and Stevie Walsh, who was another friend of Rob Walsh, who's a conditioner at Harrow School. Anyway, we got to see Chris. And Nick Frost was in that movie, and he was on horseback, and I did a double take. He was like, "Oh, there, you were there, yeah." And I'm here talking to Chris, and then he said, "Okay, maybe if he's looking after Chris now and again, maybe he'd be a good man to look after me or whatever." But I remember him saying I said, "I need you to get me a heart rate watch, because I think you're under a bit of pressure, and I don't know how much pressure. I don't know how much pressure you're under, and I don't want you to be freaking in bits." But so I said to him, get us a heart rate monitor. Okay. So it was the next session we're training, and he looked like he was ball bagged. So I said, can you just give me an update there on the heart rate monitor? And he looked at it and he went, 4 figures can't be right, right? So I was like, I'm gonna be star killed in Richmond. But yeah, no, he's back training now, so it's great to see him again. We had a bit of a sabbatical for a while, but he's back training. I love training them, but all the people I train are top peeps, you know, because they're kind of successful in their own right. I don't have to G them up. Come on, let's go, let's do it. I don't have to do that because they're their own people, and I go push that, pull that, jump here, lift that, you know. So I just point them in the right direction, and we have a bit of crack, and they head off feeling better about themselves. Bingo.
They're motivated, and it's a pleasure to work with people like that. And the ultimate thing is, you know, if you say you're going to do something, do it. It sounds like it's a very simple thing, and most people can do it, but most people can't. And that's the difference between the high performers and people who don't achieve their goals. So it is, you know, the simple things done well always win, you know. So that's really cool. Rio Ferdinand, obviously big clients, doing incredibly well. I had an unbelievable career in football, soccer. How did you end up coaching him?
I've been training Rio for 7 years.
Yeah. How did that happen? Yeah.
Well, I had the nutritionist for QPR at the time at the club, and Dunny, and he said to me, I have Rio Ferdinand asking, would you be able to PT? He's looking for a PT, and I know you train Gabby and Catherine Jenkins and all that. And he said, so what do you think? Would you train her, Rebecca? And I was like, sure, I'll give her a call. So I phoned Rio, and Rio said, well, here's her number. Okay, this is what it's going to be. So I phoned Rebecca, and we chatted about it. And needless to say, I ended up training her. I was after her. She had initial cancer treatment, and I was her kind of a get fit. And she was an unbelievable girl, top lady. And she when she was training for a while, she was like, man, look at these. These are unbelievable. And then she pointed her calves. Look at these. These are unbelievable. So she was getting really fit. To be fair, I was doing 3 times a week, and I was driving quite a distance to them. So she was a big part of my week. You know what I mean? Top lady. I was so sad that she passed away. And so I've been around Rio's not the first Ferdinand I've trained, you know what I mean? So he's the second. Yeah. And sometimes I actually think driving into Rio's, I'd like to be training Rebecca today.
Yeah.
It'd be good to see her. But he's a fabulous setup there. Kate is a legend. I love Kate. She's a super duper lady. And the family is terrific. Really, what unbelievable. The love in that house is tangible.
Yeah. And like you say, he's a guy who's motivated and
savage. But we howl. We absolutely howl. You know, because football and rugby, I know it's so different, but the crack is absolutely the same. It's absolutely so. And needless to say, we do a lot of laughing. We do a lot of laughing, which is terrific. He's an awful man for piss taking. So if I let myself open for anything, I'm like, yeah, he'll get you, you know. So he's a good man.
And back to boxing again. He almost had a professional boxing match, and you were involved in coaching him. Did you help teach him how to fight as well as train him, conditioning?
It was conditioning, but the boxing was done with Richie Woodall and Duke McKenzie, and up to the amateur Olympic committee up in, where is that? Sheffield Steel. But yeah, it was great. It was a great time, but he was so upset when it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't give him a license after a young professional had a brain clot, a blood clot, and died in his brain. And he had won the fight, this particular person. And I think that the British Boxing Board of Control would not have survived had Rio had some sort of an issue like that. Yeah. Because he was already in the limelight for losing Rebecca. And then if the boxing had gone bad, You know what I mean? And then when he was so pissed off because he put so much time into
Yeah.
it. He was flying. Honestly, he was going so well, really
And,
well.
and what year was that? Can you remember?
17.
17. So the thing about that, and I'm thinking about it because, like, in fairness to him, obviously done incredibly well in football, unbelievable career, but always a trendsetter and thinking ahead and what's next and thinking outside the box, an innovator. Like, he got involved in stuff like, the punks and all that stuff as well. And but he was there's a guy I know who does a lot of media, and he was one of the first people to really adopt Twitter. And
Yeah.
the other football players, oh, that's Rio's thing that he does. Associating that with
Yeah.
him.
Yes.
And he's always been ahead of the curve in regards to that. And even with the boxing, if you look at it now, look at all the YouTube celebrity boxing crossovers, all that stuff. He was ahead of the game potentially as one of the first ever crossover celebrity getting into that space. And now it's, as we touched on, Tyson Fury, and I know Ngannou, they're in combat sports, but it's an event. It's a spectacle. And then you have the Logan brothers and the Conor McGregor cross. He would have been one of the first there. So, you have to give him huge props for that. And there's the stereotype that athletes are seen as stupid for some reason. Even rugby players, like, when I mention I'm an artist or I do painting, it's like, what? A rugby?
Yes, yeah, I know.
I thought you guys had no brains,
so Rio is a grafter. He is a grafter. Whatever he's doing. He was 83 kgs when he retired. He is now 100 kgs. And there's not a lot on him. He is a lumpy individual. Very strong, just a great work ethic. So that's why I was saying before, you just say, Rio, give me. It wasn't that long ago. He said, I can't. I'm goosed. I don't want to do. He didn't say goose. He said something else, but he said, I don't want to do that. I said, well, Rio, I'm just going to throw it out there. You don't want to do this set. Okay, if you don't want to do this set, this will be the first set that you have not done ever with me. Ever in 7 years. And he went, all right, I'll do the set. So that's as simple as that. He's never missed a rep, set, anything. Even if he was goose and he looked pale or won't get sick or whatever.
But that goes to show as well, Mel, your coaching ability and knowing your clients and personality types and how to get the best out of them. And that's something that no doubt you've learned from being coached over the years and all that experience, which is huge part of it. The other side,
I say that to people, that the unique selling point of a PT is if he can ask you on your way in, how are you today? And from the response he gets from you, she gets from you, they can say, I can drill that person today. I'm going to have to pull the session or it's going to be a mediocre session.
Yeah.
And because what's in your head, if you go into correlate, I am above average today, I am average today, or I am below average, directly correlates with how much output you are willing to do or able. So,
and that's just from how they respond to a question.
How they respond to, hi, how are you? That's all you have to say. Hi, how are you doing today? What's the news? And then you have to be able to gauge, am I going to absolutely drill them today or not?
So where you learned that from?
And where did I learn that from?
The choir. When you're one listening to your voice, I said, you're out of here.
Okay, now I learned to suck it up there. I was like, okay, I'm not singing. I really want to be a singer.
yeah. So just before, I know we've been chatting, I've learned so much about you today, Mel, that I didn't know, which is brilliant. But speaking about Tom, again, coming back to him before we wrap up, Tom Hardy, I'm a massive fan of him from an artistic perspective, like as an actor. And, his story is very, very interesting as well, his life and everything that goes with it and his mindset. And like you'd see the way he answers questions in media is brilliant. It's very, point of fact, this is how it is. No bullshit, which I think is brilliant too. And
When I went round to the house, and I
Yeah.
was there to drop something off for Charlotte, and he said, "Oh, you're there, Mel. Hang on a second." So I waited at the stairs, and he went duk, 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 up the stairs,
Yeah.
and then down the stairs. So I'm
Yeah.
hearing this running, and he comes in and goes, "Bang! Irish passport. There you go. I've got an Irish passport now." That's what he wanted to show me. So he headed off and got a passport.
What's his connection there to Ireland? The grandparents?
Yeah, grandparent. Yes, I can't remember where they said he was from, but yeah. So that's I laughed at that. Him going up, "Ha ha! You're here." What?
So we can claim him now as well. All the best actors have an Irish in them somewhere. No, because I remember I was down with you last time I saw you in London, and I didn't know you coached them at the time. And we were in Richmond and we had a coffee, and I was going into the tube station, and I was walking by, and you glance at someone and they glance at you, and then you recognize them and you don't know where you know them from. And they kind of look at you, and I was like, who the fuck is that? Because he was looking at me and I was like, shit, what's his name? Because you're like, oh, this is going to be embarrassing because I can't remember his name. And then I clocked a second. I said, fucking hell, that's Tom Hardy. As he walked by, and it was kind of all right. And I text you and I said, you're not going to believe it, Mel. I fucking saw Tom Hardy there. He said, oh yeah, he's a good lad. I coach him and do jiu-jitsu again. I was like, this Mel lad knows everyone.
I've been in Richmond a while. So
yeah. So listen, that's absolutely brilliant. The jiu-jitsu side of it as well. Yeah, do you do much jiu-jitsu at the moment?
No, I don't. To be fair, I did a bike ride just during the World Cup there from Edinburgh to Paris with Kenny Logan in aid of MND, and I had it was a money couldn't buy experience. It was savage. I was doing it with Foxy. I don't know if you saw him. I was with Foxy, and we do the report of the day or whatever, and I set up the camera and Foxy be in the bed, and we do the lowdown day. And people was like, there are people loved it. Honestly, people were saying, this is great. It's Morecambe and Wise-esque, it's Bert and Ernie-esque, or it's Father Ted and Dougal.
And Dougal, of course.
So honestly, people are going, oh, I'm going to miss yourself and Foxy talking crap at the end of a night or whatever. But honestly, it was so good. It was brilliant, and money raised. It was just fabulous. Great people.
That reminds me, last question I'm going to ask you, or want to touch on, is social media in general. And one thing, Mel, in fairness to you, you're brilliant at is your social media. You're very natural and organic. It comes across, and I think it's something people really enjoy about what you do. And again, obviously your clients, they enjoy it too, and they've no problem because there's a bit of banter, it's natural, it's positive. Like, how did that start? Like, you're self-trained obviously in that, but you've done it incredibly well across mainly your Instagram and a little bit on Twitter. Like, did you have a strategy? Says, right, I'm going to hammer this thing because there's potential here, or what happened?
No, but I think I need to try and avail of it, to be honest. I think I need to make more of it. But I'm seeing all the shite that's on there. I just do not want to be like that. The crap. But if I can put something across that's lifting correctly, posturally, and it's good for people, I lob that up there, like fitness wise. But if it's a bit of crack, I mean, I'm not a brain surgeon. You know what I mean? I'm trying to make people stronger, fitter, healthier, and have a bit of fun along the way. I mean, I'm not coaching anybody for anything in particular, apart from the young lads I train, the rugby lads are. So, nobody's freaking in trouble if it doesn't go well. So just let's do the best we can, have a bit of crack doing it, put you under a bit of pressure. You're going to feel better tomorrow. You're going to feel better after the session. You never have a bad session. The only session you don't feel good about is the one you didn't do. So just get into
it. Yeah. So simple as that. Less is more, as they say.
Less is more.
Less is more. And that brings us round about. And before we wrap up, Mel, so we're coming to the end of 2023. We're about to enter the usual thing. You should never say, oh, next year I'll do. You should do it all the time. Best time to start is now. But next year, like, if you have any big plans or things to evolve.
I'm going online. I'm going online. Yeah. And your future self will thank you. Do what is good now for your future self.
Big time. And if people want to get in touch with you or learn more about this new online business or pre-buy packages and offers that are going to be there in 2024, how can they get in touch with you, Mel?
I'm on Instagram there, Meldine12. All the details will be on there. But yeah, it's going to be up and going by the new year. So everybody kicks off the new year, because it's in January, I turned 49, my 50th year on the planet.
Incredible.
So come on, the dads. Come on, the dads.
Yeah, fantastic. Listen, Mel, you're a legend. Thank you very much for spending the time with me. We have to meet in person again soon.
Yes, it'd be great to see you, buddy.
Do another session. So best of luck and
listen,
big time. Talk to you soon.
Good to see you, buddy.